Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're investigating the profound structural shifts that are driving a massive global crisis: elderly isolation. Now, this is a topic that feels deeply personal and honestly highly emotional for a lot of us. But as we're going to uncover, this isn't just about individual families drifting apart. It's actually being driven by huge worldwide changes in how we build our societies and literally how we live our lives. To really grasp the stakes here, we have to completely reframe how we think about loneliness. We need to stop viewing it as just a personal grievance and start recognizing it as a physical danger. Both LIV Hospital and UCLA Health cite a truly shocking declaration from the U.S. Surgeon General, who stated that loneliness and social isolation are a public health epidemic with a mortality risk equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. That completely shifts the paradigm, doesn't it? We aren't just talking about people feeling sad. We are talking about a lethal public health emergency. So, here is our roadmap for today. We'll start by looking at this as a global public health epidemic, then dive into the hidden structural causes, examine the tragic rise of solitary deaths in Asia, explore Western individualism and gentrification, and finally, discuss how we can actually combat this crisis. Let's jump right into part 1, a global public health epidemic. 1 million. Let that number just sink in for a second. According to research from Understanding Society and Age UK, that is the staggering number of people aged 65 and over in the United Kingdom who feel chronically lonely. That is a massive segment of seniors completely cut off from society. But to understand why this is happening on such a gigantic scale, we really have to look past individual circumstances.
That brings us to part 2, the hidden structural causes.
You see, senior isolation isn't a personal failing. It is the direct result of 6 interconnected global structural shifts. First, we're seeing major demographic transitions as societies move away from multi-generational households and more toward nuclear families or single-person living. Add in economic migration, where younger generations leave for megacities, plus the rapid gentrification of historic neighborhoods, and the steep decline of communal infrastructure, like local clubs and religious institutions. Pair all of that with economic vulnerability and the physical frailties of aging, and well, you have a perfect storm. Think about what this actually means on the ground. The way modern society is designed physically detaches the elderly from their familial and community support networks. Whether it's young people migrating abroad for work or just the steady decay of neighborhood civic centers, modern life makes both digital and physical outreach immensely difficult for seniors. The everyday infrastructure for casual connection is, quite frankly, just vanishing.
Moving on to part 3, solitary deaths in Asia.
In Japan, they actually have a specific term for this exact phenomenon, kodokushi. As reported by DW, this translates to lonely deaths, which is when individuals die alone at home and remain undiscovered, sometimes for days or even weeks. It directly highlights the breakdown of traditional multi-generational care, which is known in Japan as the ES system. As more elderly people live entirely alone in dense urban environments, this lack of community oversight results in extreme, terrifying vulnerability. South Korea is facing a very similar tragedy, taking the form of godoksa. According to the Korea Times, over 3,600 people died home alone in South Korea in just 2023. And this tragedy is further complicated by inadequate welfare systems that push retirees into poverty, coupled with a very strong cultural stigma against asking for external help. So many seniors essentially slip into isolating poverty entirely out of view from the rest of society. Meanwhile, China is grappling with Kongchao, or the empty nest phenomenon. This refers to seniors who live entirely apart from their children. As noted in reports from china.org.cn, historical policies like the one-child policy dramatically shrunk family trees. When you pair that with mass internal economic migration as young adults move to major economic zones for work, left-behind parents are facing severe deficits in physical, emotional, and financial care. And the scale of this is just staggering. To put it into perspective, nearly 60% of all seniors in China are now living entirely apart from their children as empty nesters. And in rural areas, that number tracks even higher. It completely reshapes the landscape of aging when the vast majority of a generation is left without immediate family nearby to offer daily support. Let's shift gears to part 4, Western individualism and gentrification. In the United States, we see a completely different flavor of the same core problem. High geographic mobility and constantly shifting workplaces mean seniors are highly likely to live in complete geographic isolation from their kids. This crisis has been building for a half-century, rooted in a strict culture of individualism and a massive decline in traditional civic network participation. As the U.S. Surgeon General highlighted, this deep cultural disconnect directly correlates with dire health outcomes.
Now, if we cross over to Lisbon, Portugal, the culprit is entirely different. Hypertourism and gentrification mean a full one-third, 33.3%, of the senior population is at severe risk of isolation. Local apartments are increasingly being snapped up and converted into short-term tourist rentals. This completely destroys community cohesion. Seniors lose the lifelong neighbors and local businesses they once relied on and find themselves surrounded by transient visitors.
Back in the UK, as flagged by the NHS and Age UK, the realities of leaving the workforce and dealing with physical frailties are incredibly stark. A heartbreaking 3% of seniors report going an entire week without speaking to a single friend or family member. Social pride and stigma often prevent these seniors from reaching out, which leaves local charities and helplines to shoulder the immense burden of trying to rebuild their social frameworks. Which brings us to our final section, Part 5, Combating the Isolation Crisis. So what are we actually doing about this? Well, we are seeing two major intervention tracks emerge: high-tech versus high-touch. In South Korea, tech entities and governments are deploying automated AI voice services, like Clova and Nugu Care Call, to systematically check in on vulnerable seniors living alone. On the flip side, Portugal's Radar project utilizes mobile drop-in centers and local businesses to track isolated seniors, while Japan is relying heavily on local municipalities and volunteer groups to develop monitoring systems. It's a really fascinating contrast between utilizing cutting-edge AI and rebuilding on-the-ground human connection. Just to be totally transparent about our investigation, we analyzed 12 primary sources to build this explainer today. These range from international reporting via DW and the Korea Times to public health data from UCLA Health and the NHS. Drawing on all these varied sources is what helps us paint a complete, objective, and data-driven picture of this global issue. I want to leave you with one final, provocative thought about the future we are actively building for ourselves. As our world becomes more digitally connected, are we designing physical societies that leave us completely alone? What you should take away from this explainer is that combating elderly loneliness isn't just about calling your grandparents more often, though you definitely should do that. It requires fundamentally rethinking our urban design, our economies, and our community infrastructure. Thank you so much for exploring this with me today, and I really encourage you to take a closer look at the networks of connection right in your own neighborhood.
Getting to the heart of the matter isn't always easy, but here we always look for the essence. Thank you for your time and your curiosity. Subscribe for more answers, and as always, thanks for watching.